Hi, everybody. This is Luis Maya, and this is also our class, The Behavioral Economics of Global Affairs. We are here on December the 3rd, in 2021. This is one of our final classes in this course. I know that it is the end of the year. Most of you are busy and struggling to make ends meet and trying to um, navigate these strange times we're moving on. But anyway, I'm glad to be here and to resume our talk about poverty. From our last class, hello, Tiago, how are you doing, my friend? Olá, Tiago, tudo bem?
Oi, Maia, tudo bem? Tá me escutando?
Estou ouvindo bem.
Bom.
Então, eu estava começando a falar aqui sobre a nossa aula, e aí você apareceu, o primeiro aluno desta noite. Mas, de toda
Entendi.
forma, a nossa aula já está sendo gravada, tá?
Tá
Então,
bom, vou acompanhando aqui.
legal, obrigado, amigo. Eu estou fechando aqui seu microfone, qualquer coisa você abre, por favor, faça seus comentários. Welcome. Here we are. This is previous to last class in our course. And we are still talking a little bit more about poverty and policies to fight poverty, right? So this is a huge challenge in a country like Brazil. In Brazil, we have resources enough so that we could eliminate poverty. But somehow, as a country, as a society, our institutions are not strong enough and they have not been efficient enough to reduce poverty. This is still a big problem in our country. I want to resume our discussions trying to have like this quick flashback of what we have seen so far. Okay? So I'm going to share here with you my screen. There we go. All right, so we have talked a little bit about how hard it is to fight poverty. We understand that through the pandemic, we have a population of 27 million people below the poverty line in Brazil. So this is a huge problem. And we have discussed very quickly that most of the times people are able to understand the very basic cycle of poverty. People go hungry, they live in very poor conditions, and they have poor health. Because of those, they end up lacking education, so they cannot accomplish enough in educating themselves. And because of that, they end up having just a very few opportunities in life, which lead most of these people to low income jobs, and the cycle will reproduce itself. All right, so this is not new. This is the conventional way to look at poverty. But more recently, we have had a different look at poverty. We are trying to understand it from a cognitive perspective. And one good example of that is this documentary, I, Daniel Blake. You can find it in YouTube if you just search for Eu, Daniel Blake. You're going to watch it in Portuguese, but still, that's the version I could find there. So what you see there is this guy who ends up going through a period of mishappenings. He has kind of a heart attack, so he cannot work anymore, but he's struggling to access social pension, like the support from the government. And it is very hard. Sometimes they ask him lots and lots of forms. They ask him to participate in training sessions. But in order to do those things, many times they ask him to go online, print some forms, submit them at specific times. And what you end up seeing is that the governmental agencies, they do not make enough effort to help people out, to make things easier, to make the access to these programs uh, more convenient, easier for people like Daniel Blake. So he goes on struggling with these issues and he ends up not achieving them, not getting the support and the benefits that he was entitled to. So this is a good way to, uh, tease you in order to think about new ways to address poverty issues. And then we have to remind us a little bit about the mind space methodology, right? So we talked a little bit about how when you design a policy, you have at least 9 different aspects of policy design that if you do use them, you can achieve a much larger success rate in those programs. Okay, so be careful who is the messenger for your message. Try to understand what are the incentives for people to behave like this or like that. You have to study and understand social norms, which many times will end up binding people's behaviors, and so on and so forth. So those are examples of policy aspects that we have discussed with the mind space methodology. Then we stopped a little bit to talk about social learning theory. And in that point, we mentioned 2 important concepts regarding how people learn and how people acquire certain behaviors. De que maneira que as pessoas aprendem, de que maneira as pessoas adquirem certos comportamentos. And then we talked a little bit about self-efficacy and collective or social efficacy. A gente falou de autoeficácia ou eficácia coletiva. In self-efficacy, we described when people are optimistic about how well they can perform a new task or how well they can do in adopting a certain behavior. So if a person is optimistic, then he's more inclined to do that. But he's too skeptical. He may look at this, he or she may look at that and say, oh no, that's not going to work. Então, autoeficácia é a maneira como você se predispõe a tentar fazer coisas novas, a acreditar que podem dar certo. And collective efficacy é aquela história do uma andorinha só não faz verão. Muitas vezes as pessoas deixam de fazer ou de desempenhar certas funções, realizar certas atividades, porque elas acreditam que só elas o fariam, que ninguém vai se juntar e que aí acabaria sendo inútil a tentativa dela. Alright, so when we had those perspectives, we were very straightforward in saying poverty can blunt the capacity to aspire and to take advantage of the opportunities that do present themselves. Now, look at this. Pobreza pode reduzir ou até eliminar a capacidade de as pessoas desejarem, buscarem, acessarem as oportunidades que se apresentam. Elas simplesmente podem ficar passivas, elas não. A pobreza, de alguma forma, pode restringir a capacidade das pessoas de perceberem oportunidades e de se mobilizarem para aproveitá-las. So, if you understand that, you understand also that policy designers must help out by simplifying procedures. No Brasil é o contrário, a burocracia é cada vez maior. We have to target assistance on a basis of bandwidth. In other words, você tem que focar a sua ajuda, o seu apoio, a sua atuação em momentos em que as pessoas estão com a mente aberta para receber aquelas sugestões, e que não estão estressadas, que não estão tão tensas. And you have to try and reduce income volatility and improve infrastructure. So this is more like the physical environment in which people live. If they live in a place that is too hard, in too hard conditions, they may end up being too stressed out in order to develop their cognition and into accessing those opportunities, ok? Então perceba, gente, simplificar os procedimentos, focar na comunicação nos momentos certos para que as pessoas entendam a mensagem da política pública, tentar reduzir a volatilidade de renda, programas de renda mínima podem ajudar, tentar melhorar um pouco a infraestrutura dessas áreas onde as comunidades vivem. So this is a huge message, and these guys learned a lot from cases implemented all over the world. So they talked about this knowledge that has been emerging from experiences all over the world. The most important message here is that if you have to deal with such complex issues like poverty, you have to work yourself to prepare a new intervention, implement, evaluate that intervention, and then adapt it, redefine, re-diagnose it, so that you can, in a second round, you can go with a more effective intervention, learn even more, and improve in this sort of organic way, okay? So this is a message important for people who are willing to design poverty fighting programs. We talked a little bit about chlorination, water chlorination, which means water treatment so that people can drink. And the experiences all over the world indicate that there is not a single solution for that. There's not a silver bullet in which if you do that, it will work. You're going to have to work a number of solutions in order to make it actually effective, okay? So you have to use both persuasion messages, you have to give people detailed instructions. So as you do that, you're going to help people overcoming the obstacles that they could find in adopting behaviors that will help them out, right? So you're trying to help people helping themselves, okay? This is the big thing. Now, at that point, we had not talked enough about bandwidth. Now, when we say the word bandwidth, most of the times in Portuguese, we would translate that to faixa. Faixa ou frequência da comunicação. So it looks like strange, the concept in the context of fighting poverty. So let me explain this, what we mean. Uh, think for a minute, when is the best time to help ladies um, being more careful with their pregnancy? Quando é que seriam os melhores momentos para você ajudar uma garota, uma senhora a adotar hábitos saudáveis durante a gravidez? Well, you may look at me and say, come on, Luis, what you're talking about? And I will tell you, look, depending on the timing you choose to approach these people to help them out, the timing is very important. So if someone has just figured out, has just discovered that she is pregnant, uh, the first reaction may be a very stressed one. This person may be in a moment in which she's very worried. She doesn't know if it's going to work, if she's going to have a baby or not, if she's going to stop pregnancy or anything like that. All of these options are in their mind. So this may not be the best moment, so you can tell them, look, by the 7th month, you're going to have to do this and this and that. So you have to choose timing to approach people and help them at the right moment. Same thing goes on with education, right? If you want people to uh, register for school and participate early in classes as soon as they start, you have to work much earlier. Many times you have to work those projects that approach to families and parents in general. You have many times to target their attention by the end of the previous year. Okay, so this timing of policies matters. Okay, we have to target assistance to the time of a decision making. Okay, in that case, you can help people better. And there is something else that I wanted to talk before I finish this topic, is about how toxic stress is. We all know that if you are too worried, if you are too stressed out, um, your whole body will not function well. You're gonna end up sleeping poorly. You're gonna end up eating not so well, and your whole health will suffer, right? But new studies have shown that a stressful environment can be toxic for the brain, and that can prevent the brain development of children. Now, think about this, how horrible thing this is. If a child happens to be born in a stressful environment, his or her brain will not develop the same way as someone else that was born in a safe and secure place, right? In a stable family. If you think about this, you're going to realize that inequality goes much, much deeper than what we think. Inequality is not at all a matter of laziness or people just not having good character. It's not like this. We have biological, cognitive impacts of inequality, of a violent or stressful environment, which are much, much more common among the poor. So if you look at this, you can say it is not a fair competition. That is one more reason why so many people argue against meritocracy. They think, come on, people talk about meritocracy, but in Brazil, in a place like Brazil, that's absolutely pointless. Não dá para discutir meritocracia num país em que as condições de partida, né, das crianças são tão distintas, né? E aqui a gente está mostrando um exemplo a mais, que é o fato de que um ambiente estressante ele é tóxico para o funcionamento do cérebro e ele impede o desenvolvimento cerebral em crianças. And you can see that when you perform tests, right? You evaluate the cognitive ability of kids in a very, very young age. And you can see how clearly correlated are the aspects of brain development and the social determinants of living conditions, right? So you can see clearly that the kids will not develop as fast and as much as people who live in a non-stressful environment, right? Now, this message, so you guys have to know it, this message has been one of the main messages of the studies of James Heckman. James Heckman is an economist and he's also a Nobel Prize winner. He's a guy who actually studied and somehow brought up evidences showing how much harmful to the wealth and the success of people their childhood are. O quão importante para o desenvolvimento de uma pessoa a sua infância é. And basically the big message that his studies bring, he ends up going back and reviewing some early studies about this, and he come and say, look, there is this concept of path dependence. Let me ask you here, Tiago and Chico, do you guys understand the expression path dependence? Have you heard about it? Please make a yes or no symbol there, or type something at our chat.
Não, eu acho que não, Maia. Path dependence, talvez restrição, alguma coisa assim?
No. Thank you, Thiago.
Nunca ouvi falar, não.
Okay, so let's go over this, okay? So the term in English say path dependence. A tradução ao pé da letra seria dependência à trajetória. The idea is quite simple. It's like this. You're not gonna get a good job if you don't finish at least high school. Você não vai conseguir um bom emprego se você não tiver pelo menos o segundo grau completo. You're not gonna finish high school if you have to work to get money and to feed yourself. Você não vai terminar o segundo grau se você tiver que trabalhar para se alimentar. You're not gonna be able to work and feed yourself if you are born in a very, very violent context. Você não vai ter condição de trabalhar o suficiente para gerar alimentos se você vive num ambiente extremamente violento. So it turns out that if you haven't opened a specific door, you're not going to have the chance to open some other doors. Para abrir uma porta, você só vai fazê-lo se você tiver aberto uma outra porta anterior. Não tem como depois você cortar caminho. Then, this idea, path dependence, tells you that if you have been somehow excluded in the very beginning of your life, your way to recover is almost impossible. Se você tiver sido profundamente excluído, social, econômica, em termos emocionais e tudo, se você tiver passado por privações muito severas no início da sua vida, dificilmente você consegue superar todas elas. Essa ideia de dependência da trajetória. Você só consegue abrir uma porta avançada se você tiver aberto antes uma porta um pouquinho menos avançada. E assim por diante. All right, so James Heckman comes and say, okay, we economists, we know path dependence. We have studied this phenomenon. What we haven't done so far is to try and understand how this can be applied to early childhood skills development, desenvolvimento de habilidades na primeira infância. So, he's an economist. He's not a doctor. He's not on pediatrics. Esse cara não é um médico, esse cara não é um pediatra. Ele está indo atrás de números, dados sobre estudos realizados nos Estados Unidos que acompanharam crianças com ou sem intervenções para promover habilidades, para estimular o desenvolvimento cognitivo. So if you follow through these people for 2, 3, 5, 20 years, and if you gather enough data, you can compare. You can say, oh, let me see how effective an early intervention is 20 years later. Você pode estudar, né, com muitos dados, com muitas informações, você pode estudar o quanto efetiva uma intervenção foi 20 anos depois. Se o efeito desapareceu ou se ele continua duradouro. And what this guy found, and actually what gave him the Nobel Prize, is showing with a huge amount of data, muitos dados, estudos de painéis longérrimos foram coletados, né, muitos dados coletados nos Estados Unidos. Ele acompanhou, começou a provar, ou mostrar estatisticamente o efeito que a primeira infância tem no desenvolvimento das pessoas. It's not like if you were born poor, if you were born in a stressful environment, you have no chance in life. That's not the message. What he is saying is that once you were harmed in your trajectory by the very beginning, there is a very small chance you're going to jump up to a better path. Uma vez que você entrou numa trajetória subótima, muito dificilmente, muito poucos casos de você saltar para uma outra trajetória. You still can make it. You still can lead a good life. You can get money. You can have a stable family. But even when you do, you're going to be like 20, 30% worse off than someone who did not have to endure the same conditions. Mesmo se você se der bem na vida, tiver uma família, tiver um emprego, você vai estar em condições que são 20, 30%, às vezes até 40% piores do que pessoas que não tiveram que passar pelas mesmas dificuldades no início da vida. Okay? All right, so those were the last comments I wanted to make about this presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions about this. Poverty and policies to fight poverty.
Não, não tive nenhuma pergunta não, mas só voltando para essa questão do path dependence, me fez lembrar, e foi quando eu falei restrição, terminou que eu estava pensando era nisso, assim. Quando a gente está estudando gestão de projetos, né, e a gente está estudando ali as atividades em termos de cronograma e tudo mais, e uma é dependente da outra, né? E a gente às vezes chama isso de path dependence, né? A gente tem uma predecessora ali, existe uma predecessora que você não consegue passar sem antes executar ela, né? Aí me fez lembrar um pouco aí esse conceito aí, trazendo para a questão social.
Exato. And this was also discussed in economic growth theory. Na teoria do crescimento econômico, Thiago, isso também é muito discutido, porque lá tem modelos que mostram em que condições um país vai catch up, né, vai alcançar os países mais e quais que não. Que ele vai ficar permanentemente numa trajetória aquém dos países mais desenvolvidos. Então, tem modelos que enfatizam certos aspectos do crescimento e que, ao dar ênfase em certos aspectos, você pode ter o catch-up, você pode ter o alcance. Então, a taxa de crescimento dos países mais pobres seria maior do que a taxa de crescimento dos países mais ricos, e aí, em algum momento, haveria uma convergência para um padrão de vida mais elevado. But that's not what we saw. We saw a limited convergence. If you look at data for the last 200 years, you're going to see that you have convergences in groups. A gente tem uma espécie de uma convergência para rendas médias em grupos específicos e não uma convergência global. And one of the explanations for that is path dependence. So you're never going to have a very sophisticated information technology industry if you don't have good engineers. You're never going to get good engineers if you don't look very carefully to the curriculum in high school. You're not going to have a good look at the curriculum in high school, then you probably, you see? So those are steps you have to look for and you have to target in order to promote access to the next level. Good. Good comment. Thank you. Chico, alguma pergunta, algum comentário?
No, teacher. Everything okay for this.
All right,
I just
good.
have questions for the last questionnaire of the part of Mindspace.
Oh, I see. You want to bring it up? I can have a look at this Mindspace thing, or you have a question about the list of exercises, right?
Yes, we can do
Okay.
this the end of the class if you prefer.
No, it's okay because we have this divide now. In a few minutes, I'm going to start a new topic, so we can have a look at it. So let me bring it up here. And you know what is the number of the question?
Yes, number 1 and number 2.
Okay. So
If you
let's the sixth list, right?
yeah, the last one.
All right. Okay, so here we are. I'm gonna okay. So let me share my screen with you here in a minute. There we go. So the first one asks you like this. The Mindspace approach takes 9 of the most robust, non-coercive influences on people's behavior as a quick checklist for policymaking. Which of the following statements reflects an example of S, salience in practice? Então aqui está pegando um elemento específico do Mindspace, que é a saliência, né, o destaque, e falando assim, qual desses exemplos abaixo é um exemplo de saliência? Aí vamos ver. A primeira fala assim: colorful illustrations in subway stations remind people of incorporating more exercises in their daily routines. Então esse daqui está claramente uma espécie de uma saliência, né? Uma chamada de atenção, um destaque ao fazer aquilo. Let's see the second one. Inverting standard options regarding organ donation ends up significantly altering people's decision. Inverter as escolhas padrões relacionadas à doação de órgãos altera significativamente as decisões das pessoas. Now, check this out, Chico. This second statement, it is true, but it is not an example of salience. O que leva as pessoas a doarem mais órgãos quando a gente inverte a lógica, né? Vamos lembrar qual que é esse caso aqui. Na maior parte dos países do mundo, para você ser doador, você precisa declarar-se doador. Então, o que alguns países tiveram essa sacada foi falar assim: não, a partir de agora, todo mundo é doador. Se alguém quiser não ser doador, vai ter que vir no cartório, ou sei lá, na hora de tirar a carteira de motorista, e vai ter que dizer: não quero ser doador. Porque o normal é já ser doador. And just by changing the default option, lots and lots of people said, you know what, it's okay. Yeah, I'm going to be a donor. It's okay. So this is not about salience. This is just about people liking to be in inertia. People don't want to change things. Whatever is that you give them, they say, okay, it's good for me. I will take the standard. I will take the combo. You go to McDonald's and say, I'm going to have combo number 1. It is like a pre-made choice for you, right? So people feel comfortable with that. Somehow they say, yeah, this is a socially approved choice, then I'm going to stick with it. The third one says, revealing to a customer how much more he or she is paying in electricity bills than his or her neighbor stimulates just a minute. Stimulates people to adopt more economic habits. Tá, então aqui a gente poderia aceitar essa resposta como verdadeira também. Por quê? Porque aqui você está dando um destaque, né? Quanto que você está gastando a mais na sua conta de energia elétrica comparada com o seu vizinho. Quando você recebe aquele destaque, você fala assim, peraí, o que está acontecendo? Será que eu não troquei as lâmpadas? Será que eu estou com algum curto-circuito nas minhas tomadas? So yeah, you're bringing up things to people's attention. So yeah, this also works as salience too, even though in this case, you are also messing up with people's egos, right? O orgulho de falar, por que eu sou pior do que os outros? Por que eu estou gastando mais do que os outros? So we are using like two aspects of decision making here. And the third one says, people who publicly commit to dieting in a community, for example, tend to have more success in losing weight. As pessoas que se comprometem publicamente com uma dieta acabam tendo mais sucesso na perda de peso. Now, this thing here, it is not so much about salience, but it's much more about how much status, what kind of status, social status we have. People don't look to be seen, don't want to be seen as someone who changes his or her opinion all the time. They want to be admired for his or her consistency, right? A person wants to be admired for being consistent. And then it's more like a social norm. It's more like somehow a conformity issues, like it is not so much about salience too, okay? So in this case, you had two possible correct answers, the first one and the third one. Fez sentido, Chico?
Sim, professor. Entendi melhor agora.
All right, so let's move to the second one. The mind-space approach takes 9 of the most robust, non-coercive influences on people's behavior as a quick checklist for policymaking. Which of the following statement reflects an example of ego in practice? So in this case, there is just one option that will mess with your ego, right? Your pride. qual delas que mexe com seu orgulho, com seu... you know what? Maybe two of them. Certainly the one about electricity bills, but also committing to a diet, publicly committing to a diet, it also about ego too, right? In these two cases, we are taking into consideration, how much we are admired or we are criticized by our peers. Então eu acho que nesse caso também tem duas respostas, tá vendo aí, ó? A ideia de saber se está pagando menos ou mais que os vizinhos, toca lá no seu ego, na sua vaidade. E também se comprometer publicamente com uma dieta, se depois você descumprir, aí você também fica com vergonha, então tem um pouco a ver com vaidade também. Alright, so for this second question, we also have two correct answers. Alright?
Alright.
Thanks, Chico. Thanks for asking. I'm glad you did. Alright, guys, so I'm gonna stop sharing this thing here. Wait. Stop share. Okay, so we are beginning now our last piece of class notes, our last set of class notes, okay? So we still have this class and we have another class on Friday the 10th, okay? But then that's it. Let me share with you the class notes in a PDF format. Oh wait, I'm gonna have to adjust some things here in my computer, but it will take just 1 minute. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and one. Okay, there we go. Compartilhar. Okay, guys, I'm gonna put it the link here in our chat box. I will also post it in our WhatsApp group. Okay, so people who are not attending this class right now, they will also have the chance to access them. Okay. Oh, by the way, I also submitted in the WhatsApp group the link for the film Eu, Daniel Blake. Okay. It is a short film. It's like 1 hour and 40 minutes or something like that. You don't have to watch it completely, but if you want, I bet you're gonna like it. Okay? Alright, so let me share with you now this last set of class notes, which are here. Just 1 minute. Okay. Okay, please confirm to me that you can see this green, this green screen saying the behavior economics of global affairs, concluding our discussions. Can you see that? All right, thanks, Chico.
Yes.
Thanks, Thiago. There we go. So this is the very last moment of our class. We're still going to talk a little bit about how to create behavioral experiments in our final meeting next Friday, okay? But I wanted to finish this class today talking a little bit about how much behavior economics have been influencing the development of policies sponsored by the UN. Então, como que a economia comportamental tem influenciado o desenvolvimento das políticas patrocinadas, apoiadas, recomendadas pelas Nações Unidas. The most important initiative in the United Nations right now is what we call the 17 development goals, right? Sustainability development goals. So before the pandemics, our most important concern was with this SDGs, Sustainability Development Goals. They have not lost importance, but they have been kind of put aside in this moment of pandemics. But as you probably realize, many of them are related to the conditions to emerging diseases, right? A grande maioria dos objetivos do desenvolvimento sustentável estão associados às condições que permitem a emergência de novas pandemias, de novas doenças, right? So they had this huge meeting right before the pandemic, and they kind of decided on adopting behavior economics on most of their policies. So the first decision of this global meeting was saying, okay, we want UN agencies and departments all over the world. We want them to study behavioral sciences and actually adopting those techniques to help improve efficacy, to help raising the rate of success of those policies. So now it is like a uniform recommendation to all UN agencies. They also said, especially for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we want people to realize that without behavioral economics, without behavioral sciences, we are going to have a very hard time in reaching those goals. But they didn't just say that. They collected evidence of such a thesis, you know? Eles não simplesmente disseram que sem economia comportamental e ciências comportamentais seria difícil alcançar os objetivos do desenvolvimento sustentável. Eles colecionaram, catalogaram exemplos de casos de sucesso on how behavior economics have been applied to improve existing policies. Okay? So I'm going to highlight some of those here so you guys can have a flavor of it. First of all, no poverty is the goal, right? Number one goal, sustainable development goal, is eliminate poverty. So he come and say, poverty is a matter of helping people saving. How do you help people save money? How do you help poor people to save money? So this is a huge challenge. How many of you have heard about this bank in Bangladesh who actually decided to lend money to poor people? Quantos de vocês que já ouviram falar do banqueiro dos pobres? Um banco em Bangladesh que se tornou referência mundial por desenvolver um modelo de microcrédito, de empréstimos para pessoas extremamente pobres. Have you guys heard about it? Tiago, Francisco?
Never heard of it.
All right. So after this class, open up your Google search and put there something like the banker of the poor. You're gonna hear about this guy who became worldwide famous because he said, you know what? We don't really understand poor people. We can develop financial products that help poor people save money, make better financial decisions, and so on and so forth. All right. So there are already a number of examples. And in Brazil, we also have examples like this. We have here Crede Amigo, we have Rural, como é que é o nome do programa rural do Banco do Nordeste? I forgot the name of it. But you have like very, very small loans to people who are just about to purchase an equipment or to improving the quality of his or her products or things like this. Então, o microcrédito ele é um instrumento muito evidente de sucesso na promoção da autonomia de famílias pobres, de comunidades pobres. All right. There are fascinating discussions too about how helping people save, como ajudar pessoas pobres a poupar. This is a very interesting discussion too, but again, these guys come up with a number of successes. So it is not only what happens in Bangladesh, in Brazil, or in Mexico, or in Paraguay. All over the world, people are starting to develop those mechanisms to promote savings. The second goal says zero hunger. Okay, so you want people to stop starving, stop going hungry. So this is a big deal. And then they say, you know what? We waste a lot of food. So we have to help people not wasting this food. We have to help people making nutritious food choices. And how we do that? Well, we have to make the access to healthy food easier, right? This is a big message in behavior economics. Se você quer reduzir a pobreza, se você quer reduzir a desnutrição, you have to help people making good food choices. Now, I'm going to say something here, and as always, I can be misinterpreted for that, but I'm going to say it anyway. Poverty and poor people in Brazil, most of the times, they are fat. A gente tem uma característica da pobreza no Brasil, que é uma pobreza gorda. As pessoas estão ficando gordas, embora desnutridas. You see, people can purchase food, but they can only access very not nutritious food, very, very bad food. They have access to fast food. They have access to sugar drinks. They have access to crackers and chocolate biscuits and things like that, but they do not have access to rúcula, alface, and tomate. So it is easier for people to buy soda than it is to buy juice, fruit juice, right? Hoje em dia é mais fácil as pessoas comprarem uma garrafa de Coca-Cola e de refrigerante do que comprarem o suco de uma fruta da região. So we have to understand that it's not only about money, it is also about food choice. And especially in places like Brazil, you have people spending their very little money in very unwise ways. As pessoas gastam o pouco dinheiro que têm de maneira muito pouco sábia. Alright, so I'm not gonna go over all the examples here, but I wanted to highlight some of them for you so you guys could see what they're talking about. And they say, look, we can have clean water and sanitation In order to do that, you have to help out people using chlorine solutions. That's the case we have discussed before, water treatment, right? In a small scale. A maioria dessas casas em comunidades pobres, elas não recebem água da Compesa, igual eu e você. Então, você precisa, de alguma forma, fazer com que seja fácil que uma pessoa que tem apenas uma caixa d'água em cima do telhado seja capaz de tratar a sua própria água. If you do that, and in many places of the world people have done that, the successes are incredible. You can reduce drastically how people get sick, how people get zoonoses, quando as pessoas ficam com verminoses, zoonoses, just by helping people treating their own water, okay? So I'm going to stop here. I think we have moved enough. I do encourage you with these two suggestions, okay? Aside from Danielle Blake, I would recommend you guys have a look at those examples, okay, on how behavior economics have been used to promote sustainable development goals. And also, here it is this link to a video with interviews by Richard Toller and Cass Sunstein. Who are these guys again? Well, these guys are not only Nobel Prize winners, these guys are the ones who had created the nudge movement, esse movimento global do empurrãozinho, de fazer com que as políticas públicas não podem se furtar da obrigação de facilitar o acesso, facilitar a decisão, ajudar as pessoas a fazerem bens para elas mesmas, de forma autônoma. Em vez de você simplesmente dar comida, você precisa ajudar as pessoas a conseguirem comida e fazê-lo de uma maneira que não seja burocrática, que não seja custosa, onerosa e tudo mais. All right, so this is the reference of the article that I used to discuss the Sustainable Development Goals. And I have two announcements to make before we finish, okay? The first one is that we have a 7th list of exercises out, right? I have posted in our WhatsApp group today, this afternoon. But we're still gonna have an 8th and the last list of exercises, okay? This will be out next week, but it will be a little bit different. In that case, 18 of the 20 questions will be picked up from previous exercises, okay? So it's going to be like a big review. 18 das 20 questões naquela última lista vão ser retiradas das listas anteriores. So there will be only 2 new questions in this last list, okay? I can tell you it's going to be easy for you. You guys have done well with our exercises. The exercises are not too hard, you must agree, but I will offer you the chance now to review all of the discussions we had so far. And on our final meeting on Friday the 10th, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you could think of behavioral experiments. So if you are still at this point, or maybe ahead of your time and already thinking about TCC, about your final work for economics, se você já estiver pensando no seu trabalho de conclusão de curso, na sua monografia, well, there is this possibility, and we will discuss that next time, okay? We're going to talk about how you as a student can prepare and perform some very, very simple experiments in order to learn a little bit about behavior economics, okay? So let me see if you guys have any questions for me. Tiago, Chico?
Nenhuma questão.
Ok. Obrigado, Tiago.
Eu também, professor.
Legal, Chico.
Como vai ser essa última aula aí, professor?
Oi? Desculpa?
É interessante aí, eu fiquei curioso para ver como vai ser a próxima aula.
Legal, legal. Eu vou compartilhar esse material alguns dias antes. Ele é uma espécie de um manual sobre como preparar experimentos comportamentais. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. I've had 3 students conducting experiments in behavior economics over the last few years. Eu tive 3 estudantes conduzindo experimentos comportamentais nos últimos 3 anos, tá? Todos eles de uma maneira assim amadora, né? Não era uma pesquisa, não passou por comitê de ética, não ia gerar uma publicação, mas era um exercício no desenho, na implementação de experimentos comportamentais. One of them was about digital influencer. Então, uma garota fez uma monografia sobre influenciadores digitais, o quanto que elas eram persuasivas, o quanto que elas eram verdadeiramente amigas em recomendar este ou aquele produto, se elas eram apenas marqueteiras ou se elas realmente estavam fazendo avaliações honestas que ajudavam o usuário de um determinado produto. We had a second student studying savings decisions among students of economics. Então, a gente teve uma segunda estudante que estava investigando as decisões de poupança, decisões financeiras dos estudantes de economia. Então, foi interessante também. And we had a third student who also worked already as a trainee for a big consulting firm, and he had lots of data and data on prices and consumption, but he ended up studying how people make choices based on anchoring. Ele acabou estudando como é que as pessoas fazem escolhas baseadas numa ancoragem, em que a gente compara o preço de um produto com um valor que já foi submetido na nossa mente, já foi de alguma forma sinalizado para nós. And then he actually went over these experiments, and those were very interesting results too. Como que a ancoragem leva as pessoas às vezes a comprar ou achar uma coisa cara ou barata como referência a uma terceira coisa. So those were 3 examples of students who have all of them taken this class, and they end up deciding to work on their TCCs with behavior economics. Okay, I'm going to bring some of their results too, but we're going to talk about how to create and implement behavioral experiments next time. How does it sound? Sounds good?
Sim, sim. Eu tenho até algumas ideias, mas depois eu queria trocar contigo.
Legal.
Como aplicar isso na empresa. Assim, eu queria fazer uma pesquisa do tipo assim, quais são os vieses mais comuns nas tomadas de decisões internas na empresa e o que foi apresentado para esses decisores para que eles tomassem esse tipo de decisão. Eu queria ver se tem ali um padrão de argumento, um padrão de apresentação, um padrão, sabe, de, sei lá, de cor, que chama atenção nas apresentações, nos resumos executivos, que levam a tomar um determinado viés de decisão. Eu queria fazer uma pesquisa nessa linha, assim, interna, sabe?
Legal. O Tiago, vou responder em português mesmo. Tem um conjunto muito grande de literatura, cara, falando inclusive sobre organizações bem robustas, né? Essas organizações mais bem-sucedidas que tem, elas desenvolvem um sistema de tomada de decisões. Elas não deixam isso por a intuição ou por o amadorismo. Eu falo assim, não, se essa decisão for relevante, ela tem que seguir certos protocolos.
Pois é, eu queria estudar o que está antes ainda, né, para entender qual é o cenário que a gente vive na empresa, para daí propor se o cenário mostrar que realmente a coisa ainda é muito intuitiva, ainda é muito despadronizada ou sem protocolo interno, muito robusto, para propor melhorias, entendeu? E aí uma das melhorias podia ser essa, já se poderia fazer uma pesquisa, um referencial bibliográfico a respeito do que já se usa aí em termos de protocolos e coisas parecidas.
Yeah, this is very interesting. We can talk about that. But let me just give you a story. Let me tell you a story before we finish this class. This is a true story, okay, about one of the most important CEOs of all time. His name is Alfred P. Sloan, okay? He was the top manager at GM, o principal gerente da GM, e é uma figura assim, antológica. Todo mundo o admira e tal. So this guy came to a meeting, and the board of directors was supposed to make a decision about a new project. And that was a very, very important project. And the directors knew that Mr. Sloan, he said himself, he was inclined to approve the project. Então, os diretores sabiam que o presidente da companhia estava inclinado, estava gostando da ideia do projeto, estava assim, inclinado a aprová-lo. But then he asked his board of directors to examine the issues and, I don't know, make recommendations. So they came up, all of them, with some ideas, and they had this meeting. And by some point in the meeting, the CEO realized that everybody was in favor of the project. O cara identificou que todos os membros da diretoria eram a favor do projeto. And then he said, "This meeting is over. That's not why I hired you. You're here not to tell me all I know. You are here to question my decisions in wise ways." Vocês estão aqui não para concordar comigo. Vocês estão aqui para enxergar aquilo que eu não enxergo e para questionar as minhas visões de maneiras que eu admire, de maneiras que acrescentem para a decisão. You see, so he was like, I want the devil's advocate. Eu quero o advogado do diabo. Eu quero alguém que chegue aqui e fale assim, olha, a minha visão é favorável ao projeto, mas tem que tomar cuidado com esse negócio, essa questão aqui é arriscada, aquela outra coisa lá pode dar uma bomba. So he was not happy at all when everyone agreed with him. Ele ficou realmente insatisfeito quando ele viu o corpo de diretores todo concordando com ele. Falou, não é para isso que eu pago o salário de vocês, não. So this is one of the stories of these famous guys, but it gives you a feeling of how hard it is to make good decisions when you have like this strong context, right? A presença de contextos fortes. Remember that story about strong context? Essa história pode influenciar a tomada de decisão. Se você tiver contextos fortes, as pessoas sentem a pressão dos pares, todo mundo está dizendo sim, como é que eu vou dizer não? And you end up making dumb decisions if you don't realize that. But yes, we can talk about it. This is a very interesting topic. Okay, guys, so this is it. Thank you so much. Enjoy the Friday, enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you next week, okay?
Ok, Maia, obrigado.
Obrigado, Thiago.
Até mais, professor. Bom final de semana.
Valeu, Chico. Abração. Tchau, tchau. I'll see you guys around.